Hello, welcome to Mustard Sports, and this is the return of Talk is Cheap, our quickfire and often random debate on the burning issues surrounding Norwich City. Joining me once again in the studio are Head of Archer Norfolk Sport, Chris Lakey, and Norwich City fan and future radio commentator, Phil Arms. Right then, we're going to keep it to a straight debate with Talk is Cheap return, and of course the transfer window, the summer shenanigans came to an end earlier this week. Now, Norwich City did most of their business earlier in the summer, which is a good thing for many reasons, but it probably didn't stop many of you guys still keeping an eye on proceedings over Monday to see if Chris Hughton would pull out one more iron from the fire. Phil, I'll come to you first. Obviously, Norwich City weren't that busy on deadline day, but overall they've done some pretty sharp business and we should all be fairly happy with that, shouldn't we?
Well, first of all, let's get it out in the open. The transfer deadline is 2 weeks later than it should be. There's no argument about that. It should be all done and dusted before the first ball is kicked in the league.
Agreed.
And I think every manager in the league agrees as well. But I believe it's all tied up with UEFA and other different transfer things. So why can't we just actually have the tail wagging the dog for once?
Well, hopefully, I think
do the job.
Michel Platini has mentioned possibly changing it, so that would be nice.
That would be
sense,
nice.
Yeah.
As regards to Norwich's summer, well, what an excellent summer it's been. I think as a Norwich City fan, you've got to be sitting there at the moment thinking, well done, Mr. Hughton and the backroom guys. It was interesting to see David McNally play the MasterCard with the Hooper transfer earlier on. He is a master at that. Well, let's wait to see what everybody else puts in, and then I'll just go in and buy the guy for whatever, the littlest I can get him for.
Exactly.
So that was done, and we all knew that one from January. The RVW job was done in January. But the ones that obviously spring to mind, we've mentioned them earlier this evening, is Leroy Fer and Nathan Redmond. Arguably, what wonderful bits of business. How you can get a player of the quality of Redmond, was it £2.5–3 million? When you look at some of the other figures that were being touted yesterday in the panic room buying that was going on, unbelievable business. And I think the guys down at Carrow Road need to be congratulated for their summer spending. Yeah,
English players tend to go for a premium at the best of times, don't they, Chris? It was interesting on Monday night because there was a sudden flurry of expenditure maybe in the last hour or so, as normal.
Expenditure?
As expenditure, maybe. Yeah. Don't need to correct me, it's all right. I'm struggling enough as it is. Sudden flurry of money, but up until that point, Norwich, I think, were the eighth biggest spenders in the Premier League. So 28 million pounds, however you want to add it up.
Yeah, it's we debated this in the office about the league. I mean, Norwich were fairly high in that league, but that was for 8 players. Then one club can go and shatter that by buying one leg. You know, it's sort of, it's an oddity, isn't it?
And Marouane Fellaini cost the exact same amount that Norwich spent in the summer.
Yeah, well, you know, what would you rather have? Fellaini or the 8 that he's got at Carrow Road? You know, for Norwich City's purposes. This is the thing with Arsenal, they've bought, I know they got a goalkeeper who, frankly, I've not heard of, no disrespect, but I haven't. But they got Ozil. One big signing. Well, I think if you're rebuilding a team and trying to improve, I'm not sure if one is right. You've got to be a very good team to only need one, and I don't think Arsenal can get away with that one. So I think in the respect of the signings, like Manchester United probably need more than one. Norwich got 8. Chris Hughton he's had his year. He did what he had to do, and now he's building for the future. Incidentally, very interesting to when you talk about buying players from overseas as well. Norwich's squad is a multinational squad. A few years ago, because of the budget, plucking Russell Martin out of Peterborough, plucking John Ruddy from another loan spell, you know, a lot of English or British-based players. And look how the market's changing now, and the scouting network that Norwich have throughout Europe, because they can, and still have to shop accordingly, but yeah, it's very interesting to see how times are changing.
I think they have to do it. Yeah. Mesut Ozil, I know, 42 million quid.
Did I call him something else?
No, you called him right. No, you called him spot on. I just can't wait to see him playing in the Premier League. I must admit, we know what everyone's done business-wide now. They're stuck with it until January, unless you're West Ham and you can re-sign Carlton Cole after you let him go.
As you'd like to, wouldn't you?
As you'd obviously do. Who's going to struggle? I mean, obviously we're looking at teams that, well, hopefully several teams that will finish below Norwich.
It's an interesting one, that, because Crystal Palace had a massive day yesterday, didn't they? Was it 7 or 8 players?
They've recruited 15 players over the
They've
summer.
more signings than anyone else, I think, haven't they?
Yeah.
Went to town, so of course we don't know quite how that's going to pan out, and Ian Holloway has his own way of doing things anyway. So it will be interesting. I mean, I would have thought that they will struggle, certainly over the next few weeks, to get that little lot to gel, because they've had no pre-season to put them together. So when are we playing Palace? Can that be next week, please?
I think you'll find it's a familiar date when
Yeah.
they play
I think
Palace.
it might be Christmas.
Special for New Year, yeah.
For New Year.
So there's that side of it. Palace, one of the ones that has spent wisely, didn't bring in too much too late, Steve Bruce. Now, we struggled at Hull, but Steve Bruce is a canny old operator, and I think he's done something. We would look for Hull to be below us. They've already got 3 points off us, and that's an interesting one to look at. But I just wonder, have West Brom done enough? Because they've done a little bit of activity, and I think there was another one yesterday. But they had a good season last year, but I don't think that they've actually, if you like, strengthened in depth. And I think they're one of the teams that we will look to see struggle this season.
It is interesting. They tried to get Romelu Lukaku back on loan. He went to Everton. I think they'll still miss him. I'm not sure about Anichebe and Sessegnon. We will see. Newcastle for me.
Anywhere in the North East?
Well, and Sunderland, exactly.
Yeah, I think Di Canio's, it's a different world he lives in. Certainly a different planet. I wouldn't be very happy if I was Sunderland or Newcastle fan. I watched Newcastle on TV the other day. Embarrassingly, at St James's Park, you could hear the players shouting to each other. That shouldn't happen there. It's too big a place, too big a club, and it's poor old place.
And I believe Alan Pardew has just issued a statement this evening about the transfer not goings on, because of course Joe Kinnear is supposed to be in charge of player contracts and player movement, and Alan Pardew has released his own statement saying that he's not satisfied, but there was no one they could bring in on the budget they had that was any better than the players they already have.
Good job it's not a club in turmoil, huh?
I was going to say it all seems to be going swimmingly. Well, that's obviously the benefit of Norwich getting their business done. Does it affect where you think they'll finish this year, guys?
I think that it's done them the world of good. They've brought in quality, they've brought in some youngsters, they've brought in a little bit of experience as well. I don't know whether we will get to the dizzy heights of 8th if we're 8th in the spending league, but I don't think we're going to be far short.
Oh, I love this optimism.
More
Chris,
interesting.
I think I pressed this on you.
There'll be the reflective or the shadow transfer window, of course, next week when the loan market resumes and when Chris Hughton's named he's 25, who's not in it and where they go, because there's going to be some players there, decent players, up for grabs.
Indeed. September the 8th it reopens, and then it's a free-for-all in the Football League.
Yeah.
Gentlemen, we are done. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Much
Thank you.
appreciated. Thank you all for watching. As I said, international break, so there is no 3 up front next week, but we'll be back with another Talk is Cheap. And the pundits predict to look ahead to the trip to White Hart Lane. Gareth Bale less, but certainly big spending. It should be a very interesting one, that. Chris Hughton returning to his old haunt, of course. Now, if you want to get involved with us on Talk is Cheap or any of our other shows and join us in the studio, get in touch with us on Twitter at Michael J. Bailey or at Mustard TV. Grab a hold, say hello. Until then, enjoy the rest of your weekend, and we will see you next week. Goodbye.